Britain gained open ports and trade monopoly rights through the victory of the First Opium War, but did not make as much money as expected, and its exports were still dependent on opium. In addition, when Qing began secretly producing its own opium, Britain's trade deficit was about to be an issue again. On the British side, it was very frustrating. Britain was actually looking for an excuse and got one finally, and that was the Arrow incident. One day, the Qing naval forces cracked down on the British-owned ship Arrow. While Qing officials were investigating the ship, an incident occurred in which its honorable flag was damaged during the crackdown. Britain started the Second Opium War on the absurd excuse that its flag had been damaged. In 1857, Britain formed an allied force with France and invaded downtown Guangzhou. It was so absurd to say that the pretext of the war was that the national flag was accidentally damaged during the investigation. In December of that year, Guangzhou was occupied and fires were set throughout the city, killing civilians. Afterward, the combined British-French forces moved north in 1858 and occupied Dagu Fort. When Tianjin, the gateway to Beijing, was occupied, the Qing government could not hold out any longer and signed the Treaty of Tianjin. After the Allied forces were stationed near Beijing, they attacked Wanmyeongwon, the emperor's secondary palace. The Allied forces set fire to Wanmyeongwon after looting gold and silver handcrafts and ornaments.
Eventually, the war was ended through negotiations between King Gongzhen and the Anglo-French Allied forces, and the Treaty of Beijing was concluded under the mediation of the Russian Empire.
With the Beijing Treaty, the Qing court recognized the Tianjin Treaty, and the opium trade was legalized. It was an absurd thing that forced a powerful country to legalize the trade of opium, a drug, in China.
In addition to this, the presence of foreign diplomatic ministers in Beijing, opening of 11 ports including Tianjin, inland travel, commerce, freedom of missionary work, and worship right to enter were legalized.
China provided 8 million pieces of silver in war reparations to Britain and France, and ceded Hong Kong's neighboring provinces of the Gurung Peninsula to Britain and suffered huge losses. Later, the maritime province was handed over to the Russian Empire, which had assisted in the signing of the Beijing Treaty.
So the great powers such as England, France, and Russia were eating the Qing dynasty like a fat pig whenever they had the chance. Their defeat in the Second Opium War had a far greater impact on the Han Chinese than their defeat in the First Opium War. The Qing Emperor's escape and the occupation of Beijing were not just a defeat in war, but an event that shook the Sino-centralism that had been ingrained in their minds of the Han Chinese from their roots. When Beijing was occupied, the Qing court at the time became impatient and ordered two generals, Zhang Gukbian and Li Hongjiang, who were confronting the Taiping Heavenly Army with the Moron Army, to send their troops back to Beijing. But the two generals disregarded the order. Chinese delusion was at the root of the Opium War that brought the collapse of the Qing dynasty, which was believed to be the center of the world. At that time, the Qing dynasty did not wake up from the Middle Ages to be aware of the rapidly changing world paradigm and only raised the pride in Chinese ideology, Sino-centralism. As the Qing dynasty was defeated in two opium wars, the Chinese ideology, Sino-centralism, was shaken to its foundation. After the war, the Qing dynasty, which had lived so prosperously, fell into internal and external trouble that did not stop, and the people suffered from starvation. After the Second Opium War, the Japanese Empire was working hard to advance into the Korean Peninsula and China. So East Asia was gradually entering a crisis phase. I think that it seems that the situation is the same as it was 160 years ago and in the present. The US joined China in the WTO and made it the world's factory so China could prosper with the help of the US.
The United States thought that if China made a lot of money and became prosperous, its political system would become a democratic country that promotes people's basic rights.
However, China is increasingly monitoring the people, destroying freedom of religion and speech, and oppressing their people.
China keeps entering territorial disputes with neighboring countries, making neighboring countries and Western countries all its enemies.
So, it seems that China is recreating this situation of war with the Western powers and the United States 160 years ago. It has been said that history repeats itself. Looking at China now, it looks precarious. Thank you for watching the video, The Second Opium War, provided by History and Current Events. I'm Rebecca. Mia, Katie, Leah, and Tony have contributed so far as narrators. Thank you.